One of the more interesting things I'm looking at the moment is gamification, which I think is kind of is going to be the buzzword of the year eventually for 2011. A lot of interesting things happening in that market, but they're not at this point getting through to the general public. So you only get real traction when you get real people using things. It's a continuous process. There's no sudden changes, but clearly Twitter has become really important in 2010 and will be more important in 2011. I've been talking to PRs online since I think 1987, 86, 87, when we had Kik's conferencing system, and we had a Twitter-like conference area that had some very pioneering PRs on it as well. Now, at the time you only expected perhaps half a dozen people to be that switched on, but today, if you're not on Twitter, then we begin to think, well, is this person seriously in the PR business? Because it is a good way of tracking what people are doing, and it avoids you having to ask those dumb questions, that PRs typically do ask. I mean, every journalist thinks that every PR should know absolutely everything about them, right? And that it's a bit of a crime if they don't know who you're working for or what you're working on. Therefore, you ask, what sound like dumb questions. I don't see any particular changes, but clearly the personal relationships work better than the kind of mass market mail out kind of thing. But there's a limit to how many personal relationships that you can have. Well, I think it's a very good thing, and me and Neil McIntosh, who's now at the Wall Street Journal, were the two guys who basically got The Guardian into proper blogging. We did it when we were running the online section, and we started online blog. We did it on Blogger, so it was outside the Guardian firewall and outside the authorial control, so that if something goes up on the Guardian, it's probably been read and fact-checked, and it's been sub-edited, and there's a section editor who might have read it. You've got managing editors, you've got lawyers, so that if you've got something kind of that you think might be a bit questionable, you obviously lawyer it before you print it. So newspapers and so on have quite involved control systems that ensure that something that appears under their rubric has a certain quality level. And we were just writing stuff and posting it, and writing stuff and replacing it, and doing things that you now cannot get away with in terms of blogging, which is to write a paragraph in the middle of a press conference, and then completely remove that paragraph and write 3 paragraphs at the end of the press conference, and then get home and completely remove that and publish a proper story. Product photos particularly are really hard to do. Now, in newspapers, especially in the old days, we didn't, woodcuts were expensive, photos were hard to do. People didn't use photographs very much, and if you look at the print media over the last 50 years, huge growth in use of photography, huge growth in the use of colour, and now practically every blog post wants a photo. Where are the photos? Good question. People are raiding Flickr. They're scratching around, and I'm in obviously the same position as everybody else, and somebody brings out a new product. Where are the photos? They are nowhere to be found. You know, it's really, really hard. And you go to the press release on the, you know, HP or IBM or whatever site. You're lucky if you can find the press release. It's a miracle if you can find the photo. And if you're a journalist, you want somebody who talks headlines. It's not that you want a 30-minute conversation. It's that you want like the 3 really good sentences. So if you had somebody who could think of the 3 really good sentences that the journalist wants and then puts them into good prose, not written prose, but talks good prose, and then says them, you know, that would actually be a killer feature, because journalists print good quotes. Okay, it's not it's not necessarily what the person said, but if they said something in a witty or interesting way, a good observation, and very, very few people can actually do that. And they think, when you're talking to somebody from a company or a PR, they think they're telling you about the subject, and they will talk to you for half an hour. And they'll say lots of things that are kind of interesting, that are informative. But actually what you want is 2 minutes of stuff that you can write down and print. That's actually what the end result is. And very, very few people have actually twigged that. You know, there are a couple of analysts that I kind of criticise, and I say, well, you know, you're talking headlines. But they do. You know, you can spend 10 minutes talking about something and not say anything that a journalist can print. But somebody else can come along and say, this is a global village sending me the news that tomorrow just doesn't cut it anymore. And somebody can, you know, say, wow, he's right. Write that down. Put it in the paper. You know, end of story. And that's a terrific gift.